Joel.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so for the roll call, reflect all members are present. And board chair comments. So I have just a couple. So I want to start with saying thank you to Joel, our custodian teams, our band, our choir, and everybody for graduation. That went great. I thought that was a well-oiled machine after a few years. So that was great and a good thing to be part of. Summer school kicked off today. So having kids out of the building, but right back in for a little bit, and curious to see how that's going to go for everybody, especially early. I think that was a great idea. So this is the first time I think we finished all the contracts, the non-union negotiations, and all the director negotiations before the end of the school year, like ever. So that's awesome. So thank you all for that. That's between the board and everybody else. That's a heavy lift. I want to recognize Kathy Pop. She's retiring after 34 years from here. So I thought that was something worth recognizing. So thank you to Kathy. Donations. So this month, again, we're just under $7,000 of donations to the school and our students. So I think that's amazing from our community. And lastly, welcome back to Michelle. It's great to have you back. And with that, I will take a motion to approve our agenda. By Director Bowen.
Second.
By Director Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Another great part of the night is appreciation, recognition, and presentations.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werekamp, Tony Newman, elementary principal. I'm recognizing Elsie Warsgala. She's not here right now. However, her second grade class out of Miss Bernie's class submitted posters to the University of Minnesota. And hers was selected, and there were only 13 recognized in the state of Minnesota, and she was one of 2 second graders to win. So congratulations to her. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So that was just great.
Awesome.
A couple things. Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Camp, Camp French Activities Director. First off, I'd like to congratulate our track athletes that participated in the state meet. Girls, if you want to stand up. Members of the 4x100 meter relay were Aurora Wahlberg, Claire Procott, Lydia Procott, and Haley Wolbeck. They ended up placing 4th in state with a time of 49.92. So they had some really great competition, and so it was awesome to see that. And then also want to congratulate Aurora on qualifying for state in the 100 and 200 meter dash as well. So congratulations. Well done.
Yep. But don't go anywhere, because we'll take pictures in a little bit.
I also want to talk about BPA. We had sent 3 kids to nationals, 2 that qualified, and then there's another.
Lane still competed.
Yeah. And so Trent Hinkemeyer competed, and Aiden Ripple and Lane Olson all competed at the national level. And Trent, remind me, what place did you end up placing? You top 9th place? Aiden, sorry, but you did well, and you recently did really well with your Excel certification as well. Like one of the top
10 in the state.
top 10. That's what I was
Among
thinking.
students from 13 to 22.
That's
so
what I was
college
thinking of.
Students also.
So yeah, so Trent, Aiden, and Lane all went to nationals for BPA last month. So congratulations.
So I would like to give a shout out tonight and here to our custodial staff. As you were aware, we had a little small kitchen fire, with our dishwasher. And thank goodness, all the children had been served and we were just cleaning up, but the custodians came in and just went to town on getting that thing cleaned up. They put in extra hours over the weekend. They reacted quickly, very calmly. And I just want to say thank you to Tony and his team, and we'll get them their certificates. And then I would like to also give a shout out to our principal, Joel Swenson, for receiving the 2024 Star of Innovation Award for our high school, middle school life skills lab. He was awarded that by the Principals Association. And I'm just really proud that we were able to utilize that space for classes that had been originally sitting for storage. And it aligns with our strategic plan, and he was given an award for it. So tonight, Joel, I'd like to give you the certificate. After the first. Short-lived.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Track.
This is the middle.
You're done, Track.
Yes.
Almost too far.
Congratulations.
Sweet. I know. It's a thing.
All right, thank you for those. Recognition of citizens for input purposes. Yep. Come on up, Kathy.
Well, I know you got my letter, so. And I got a shirt today, school's out forever. I just wanted to publicly say what a journey it's been. I get very emotional. This was very hard, even at 70. On Friday, it all came to place. I thought I had more time. And I realized that to submit to para, you were supposed to do this 60 to 90 days before retirement. Well, I was darn near at the 60 already. So I quickly did my letter, did my stuff, and then my name was wrong, and I got that straightened out. So I said, okay, let's just go ahead and do this on the very last day. And Saturday, I felt more like I was planning a funeral for myself instead of retirement. But I know there'll be life after school, and I won't be a stranger. But this job came along at a time of my life where I needed something more than being a farm wife. And my last kid got to school, and I followed him, and I got to see my children go through school. I got to work with my daughter for a while. I got to see my grandchildren. Some of them come through school. I had 24 years in SPED. I saw many SPED kids graduate and come back and have kids in school and invite me to their graduation parties and still talk to me. And then the years in the library was, less stressful. And I put on many goofy costumes that were totally odd. The very first time I put on the Cat in the Hat, I went in that back room behind the media center and I put it on, I took it off. And I put it back on, I started taking it off. It's just do this. No, they're not even going to recognize you. Oh yeah, they recognize me, but it's just been an amazing place to work. And I never wanted to go anywhere else. When I first started, I said I was going to school. I don't think I asked how much money I made. I got a paycheck and it's just been just the very best place to work with. I made many friends that I will continue, and I don't plan on being a stranger. So thank you for everybody for your support, and some here were teachers and whatever before I came, so, I'll, like I said, I won't be a stranger, but I will miss it, I think, we'll see.
Kathy,
So,
I'd like
thank
to
you.
personally thank you for all your hard work that you've been devoted to our kids, and we really, really
I,
appreciate
I,
that. And you
I did,
great
there,
parents.
you know, I did math for a while and there wasn't, I came to school when I was sick because there wasn't subs and I was one that just was, I was dedicated to the job, I really was, so,
It didn't go unnoticed.
oh, that's good. All right, so, thank you.
We're very appreciative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, anybody else? All right, we will move on to board committee reports, finance. So,
Finance met on May 22nd. We just briefly reviewed this month's reports, talked about the students' enrollment being up a little bit as we finish off the year, and discussed some of the history of our unassigned fund balance, and most of the information will be gone through again tonight with Heidi as she gives the presentation.
thank you. For Midstate, we've provided our written request for them to leave the tech program. So they're talking about it right now. We're also talking about switching the joint powers and how they work. So like the 18 months that's supposed to be there, we're hopefully gonna revitalize that because, you know, we're not the only school that's, looking at ways to save some money. So, they're looking at doing that too. Hopefully the superintendents get to go through that first and then it'll come back to the board before the next school year starts, but we're starting that, which is a huge win for all of us to.
Is that affecting more than just? I mean, all the agreements then?
Which will be good because there's
Yeah.
a lot of outdated stuff in that.
Yeah, imagine there is.
There's but that's good. So I'm glad we're working forward on that. And then policy, so, yep, we, for the second reading, and final for the approvals, 214, one sentence removed out of it. Policies, that are incorporated by reference from 523, they took out about 12 policies and left it down to like 5, that we have to post and have references to and different things like that. Basically, the rest of them either had one reference change, because of that statute changing, or there was no update. It was just a 3-year review. There wasn't anything there. And then, for a third policy reading, 407, which is the employee right to know exposure to hazardous substances, motion, or hazardous substances. We've been waiting on that, to approve that until we had 807. 807 is now in our second reading. We'll be done with that this next one. So that's really where we're at on the policy. A lot of policies that were just reviews. So that was pretty good. Any questions on any of those? All right, move to superintendent.
So I just want to give an update, first of all, that the board has approved that we move regions from Region 3 to Region 1, seeing the RDC out of St. Cloud moved to Region 1. We're working through that process. I'm hoping to get it done in June. Heidi's working with Region 1. We have to make sure though that everything is in line before that happens, and we have multiple payrolls that have to be put in the system in June because it's the end of the year. So we're hoping it doesn't happen in July, that we don't have to worry about that, but we're just working through. So just let you know, that was a lot of ongoing communication before that happened. So all the region executive directors had to meet to finally get that to go. So it was drawn out. I want to also show you, we had talked about this at a different work session. I just want to bring up our long-term financial plan and remind that we'll walk through this one more time here quickly. You just know at the top, you see long-term financial plan 2024 to 2034. So we'll look at updating that then every single year and taking off the old and adding on any new. Just so you know, we're at some stadium lighting for under facilities that has to take care of this next fiscal year. You can see the ongoing technology expenses. If you go over to the other side, we have science curriculum is on top. on pace to be, for FY '24, and we've got letters coming up in FY '25. MDE should be taking care of that PD, but I put question marks there just because you never know how that might play out. Joe Weiser, our transportation director, was able to actually locate a bus for 115 versus 144. He called in a favor with somebody. And so we're grateful to have a little bit of savings there, but as you can see our order of what we've got in upcoming years for transportation costs with vans and buses. So I just wanted to remind you all that we have this document. If you pull it down further now, you can see where we are on the bond. So pull it down. Thank you. So you can see that we have the larger bond that ends, yes. What, does that help? They have the small $2 million bond, well, and they need to see the years. I wonder if we can. No. Make it smaller, I think, just so that they can read the. No, I want them to, there you go, okay, so you can see in 2032, that $2 million bond drops off, so that next year of 2033, that LTFM money will start to increase and how much we receive annually for LTFM costs, and then you can see in 2036, that building bond that was done ends in 2036. So we'll just keep that down here. So on this particular document, so you always can reference and remember those dates. Any other questions about that? Do we have access to this file? Yes, did you share it? Did you not get it in any email? I thought in the past, over the work session, I can get it to you, but I can resend it. That's not a problem. I can certainly see it. So just giving a reminder of what our impacts are on long-term large expenses. And that's all I have, other than the end of the school year was great. Graduation was wonderful. It's my favorite date. I always get excited because I know how excited the students are. I go to graduation every year, but they don't. It's their only one, and it's really exciting. And again, I thank Joel too. It's very well organized. Got it done in 1 hour. Good work. So yeah, good end of the school year. So I think.
Awesome. Any questions for the superintendent? All right, business manager, Heidi.
Good evening, Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Dr. Christine Warkamp Herman. You'll see me up here a few times tonight, specifically for this part of fiscal year 2024 June budget update for this board meeting. This slide we see every time. We continue to monitor enrollment monthly. As of May, we're at 910 students, a couple from the last report in April. And as we continue going forward, we'll wrap up this fiscal year and MDE will publish average daily membership for us to reconcile at year end. General fund revenues are overall on track with the current year revised budget at 75%, and as compared to previous years within the 1 to 3% range. Overall, I look to see where we might have any variations that wouldn't have mitigation behind it. And again, I don't have any concerns with our revenue as a percentage of the budget. General fund expense, again, monitoring month to month, and as compared to previous year's budgets, slightly ahead at 78%. Most notably, I continue to double check our salaries, wages, and benefits, since that is a majority of the budget, and those are on track as a percentage of the budget in total. Where we're ahead of budget, that throws our overall percentage as current month's revised budget is our purchase services. And that is due to the payments we make to Midstate. They bill us the same amount every month, and then they reconcile in June to offset any expenses that were overpaid or underpaid, etc. So we'll see that come in line with the final results of the current year budget. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Vic. Principal report.
Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp. Joel Swenson, high school principal. Ryan stole my thunder, at the beginning with his opening comments. I'd like to thank the board for being a part of graduation. I think it means a lot to our graduates for you to be there and to take part in that ceremony. You are an important part of that. Summer school open today. We are about almost 30 in middle school and about 20 in high school. That are taking part in the summer school for the next 3 weeks. And so those students are making up credits and learning some study skills and excited to, even though they've only been out a week, it was still even a little bit exciting to have students back in the building today. And then the third and final thing I have is Will Roush competed in the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Washington DC during graduation week. And last year, I believe he got out on the first round, and this year he made it to the 6th round of that spelling bee and ended up tied for 22nd in the nation, 22nd out of 245 spellers. And that is, I'm just think of every school district in the country running some sort of spelling bee and those kids advancing to their region and advancing to their state and going into the national spelling bee and finishing in 22nd place is a tremendous accomplishment for him. So I'd like to congratulate Will Roush, even though he's not here tonight. I'd like to congratulate him on a tremendous performance. I mean, he was our 4-time spelling bee champ and 2-time national spelling bee participant. Just a tremendous achievement for that young man. So congratulations to Will.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp, I have 3 ladies come on up to help me with my principal report tonight. These 3 ladies came to me the last week of school, and they had a proposal for me to consider on whether or not I would approve it. So come on up. Are you guys, you're just gonna walk that? Okay, go ahead and sit right up there. So these ladies are Girl Scouts and they are working on their bronze badge. What? Bronze award. And they've got a project that they're going to do. So why don't you explain that while that's booting up, okay?
So for our bronze award, basically for this award, it is something that you have to do to help benefit the community that is going to go on for more years to come. And one of our ideas that we sent to the council and they approved of was a little free library. And we brought this idea to Mr. Newman and we asked him what he thought. He said he liked the idea and said that we should come to a school board meeting. So we're just here today to ask your opinion on this project.
A litter-free library is a take one, leave one kind of concept. Kids or adults can take a book and or leave one back, just so it can cycle on. Why? We are doing this for a bronze award. A bronze award is the 3rd highest award in Girl Scouts. The next highest awards are the silver award and the gold award. All these awards can help you get into college and become a leader. To achieve this award, you have to do a project for your community that will continue for many years.
When we want to put this little free library in by the end of the summer because the deadline for Girl Scouts is September 30th of this year.
We were planning on putting it in the front of the school so the community can use it and it will not be cemented in if another location might be better. How? We will use recycled lumber materials as much as possible. We will fundraise money for plexiglass, paint, and accessories. We are going for a simple design and for a colorful paint job. The estimated cost is about $100.
Your thoughts, feelings, perspectives, and idea. What is our next step if you approve of this project?
That's a great project. I think that's that's wonderful to do. Have you looked, Tony, where it's gonna go?
So right straight out door number 2, which is just out the door from the cafeteria, there's a sidewalk and then there's a little corner there away from the rock. So it's on the other side. It's in full camera view. So if somebody decides to mess with it, we'll know exactly who it is. But it's also away from the door so that people can pull up, they can get out on the sidewalk, they can grab their book, leave a book, and off they go.
Awesome. And we've had the custodians looking at it and marking all that good stuff.
Yep.
Awesome. No, that sounds great to me. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you do for seed books? Like how do you get your first books in there?
So we have all the books because we all have little siblings that read books or take them and like say, start them.
Okay.
Or, we have ideas for fundraisers and, it's looking at what we're looking at, the design, it's not gonna be that too costly, so we're hoping to use the fundraiser money to buy books or take in donations, cause we have a few people who'd be willing to do that.
Yep.
That sounds great. Anybody?
I think it's a great idea and I thank you for presenting to us. It takes a lot of guts to stand up there, so thank you. I think you guys should reach out to some lumber companies and see if they'll maybe donate the wood for you. Great work.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Big picture.
Do I want to take a picture with them?
Or
Absolutely.
stand. I don't know. Just big. Okay. That's cool.
Did we get an approval on this? We approve it?
Do you have how many books? How many books do you think you get fit in it?
No, but
Do you wanna vote?
is he? Well,
Yeah.
we'll go. Yeah, want approval from
That'd be awesome.
the board?
A little bit.
I'll make a motion to approve the library.
By Director Boyd,
Second.
second by Director Roaring. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Good job,
All you
girl.
ladies. Good job. Thank you so much.
It was a no brainer for me to have them come and present this to you because that's just a small sample size of what we have in our building. Wrapping up my first year as principal, it's been so enjoyable to see that kind of thinking all throughout our building, day in and day out. It is just phenomenal, and doing exit interviews with teachers and staff, this year, just in a blink of an eye, here we are. We're in June already. And it's the enjoyability of how time flies when you're just so engrossed in what you're doing. So it has been really, really fun. And Joel's right. Last week was quiet. Monday, we had teachers. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was quiet. It was eerily quiet. And today with summer school starting, targeted services, smiles are back on faces. MAP starts in the building and the building's buzzing with different type of projects and stuff going on. So it's been good. So any questions?
Thanks, Sean. Yes.
Chair Hoffstead, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp Herman, Caitlin Frenchick, Activities Director. Well, I think I did okay for my first year. And then our spring sports are wrapped up now for the season. We had some success on the track side. We had a boy golfer make it in the second day of sections. Softball, baseball, ended up losing in the first round of sections, but it was a close game and competitive game. So, spring stuff went well. I do need to provide my fundraising report. So there's only a handful of groups that did fundraising from December roughly to May. Drama had 2 different fundraisers. They had their dinner theater, which income wise made $6,820. And then they had roughly $5,200 in expenses, so they profited $1,620. They also did ham bingo, which they brought in approximately $540 in income, but then with the catering costs, it was about $160, so the total was $380. Our boys basketball had 3 different fundraisers. We hosted the CMC junior high basketball tournament. With admissions, they made about $1,229. They also had a youth basketball tournament, which that income $5,114. 5,140, yes. And then they also sold fundraising cards, which is their yearly thing that they do. Went for about 2 weeks and their income was $3,590. So definitely making some good progress to be able to get new things. Our volleyball team did a co-ed volleyball tournament and then they also sold concessions. They raised about $1,502.25. And then our softball, baseball hosted a junior high tournament, a rainy-ish day in the end of April, which we were concerned if we were gonna get it, but we did it. Each of those programs, had the 700 entry fee for the tournament and then plus whatever they made on concessions, which are, I'm still waiting to get the final totals for that. So, that would be the fundraising report. Any questions?
No,
Thank you.
thank you. And Amy?
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp Herman. I'm Amy Kruger, the Community Education Director. Today was the first day of summer MAP. We have 66 kids registered as of today. The staff last week did a week-long training, which was kind of new-ish for us. They were all trained in CPR and first aid. And they went through lots of behavior training and lots of other things, expectations. So really treating this like a real big kid job for a lot of those kids who are just getting their first jobs through us. Also in enrichment, we pretty much have mostly youth and recreation going on this summer. The typicals: t-ball, tossball, baseball, softball, soccer, volleyball camp, basketball league, kind of lots of kid stuff going on. We're not doing any adult things, we're letting them just enjoy the summer, and I'm taking on more of my HR role at this point in time in the summer. For preschool, we have 71 kids that are registered. We have 15 slots that are not full at this time, before we start a waiting list. And so that we're doing really, really well. And then just an update, we continue to, bring on our AROC system. Our MAP and preschool registration and billing has been done through, AROCs. And then in the fall, our enrichment and facility requests will totally kick off and be kind of out there. Some of it's out there now, but we're not fully using them yet. We're still working on the policy that relates to the facility use, and so lots of work to do there. That's what I have for you for community ed. Any questions?
Is that like a deadline for that policy then?
No,
Getting us school?
no, I mean, it's out there with the current policy. It's just like, you know, the current language is in there, so.
Okay.
No, I'm not giving you a deadline. We'll take as long as we need to with that one. That one's a cumbersome one.
It'll take a while to get that one right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next is the consent agenda approval. So the board is consenting to approve items listed below as presented at one time. Any director can pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion. So we have the approval of the regular board meeting minutes from May 13th and work session meeting minutes from May 20th. We have claims, accounts, and financials. That's payable and receivables, employee reimbursements, and financial reports that were attached. Resignation terminations, approval of new hires based on the background check and licensure status. We have approval of retirement, the approval of the MOU with the technology integrationist, the technology integration specialist contract, director of technology contract, transportation director's contract, nutrition service manager's contract, the principal contract, HR community ed director contract, and buildings and grounds director contract. Is there anything that anybody wants to pull? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion approved.
Director Bowman,
Second.
second by Director Hackett. Any discussion?
I have a few questions.
Yep.
I'm not part of any of the negotiation committees. But when I look at information through the lens of financial information, I just, I want to clarify a few things. So the annual increase that we get from the state is 4% first year, 2% the second year, correct?
Plus inflation, right?
Can't be over 3, can't be average. Okay, and so,
Actually, I don't know if inflationary counts this FY 25, I think it's FY 26 that comes into play.
Okay,
okay, and so the board had given approval to the committees to give raises at 3% and 2%, correct?
I know, so part of that we talked about,
That we were given like pre-approval for the committees to offer a certain.
yep.
degree. That
So
was
we did
3%,
do negotiations
right?
in closed session about what we were talking about doing, yes.
Okay, so, my question is the trajectory, sustaining the trajectory of. If that's the total amount of money that we're gonna get from the state is 6% in 2 years' time, and we're. Giving out 5% of that in raises. How will we sustain that trajectory going forward? I just question the process, and I'm not a part of the negotiation committees, so that's why I'm asking. Those who are involved in the negotiation committees firsthand, do you see this being problematic budgetarily? Like, or do you see us being able to sustain this trajectory of utilizing that much money towards salaries? That's all, that's the question.
No, that's a fair question. I can start with that. We can, it really depends on our ADMs as to what we can do. But from what the state gives us, that correlates to all of the other budgetary things that we do. So it goes to payroll and it goes to LTFM and all that as the biennium goes. So at the, say, 6% that we're talking about, which is, 4% plus 2% is a little bit more than that, but so that's what we got this year, and we spent underneath what we got. So that's a good thing. I think we're right where we can be with that.
Normally in negotiations, it depends. Every negotiation cycle depends. So
Yes.
some years,
Like
You
it could
might get-
change, like when we do this again, it could be totally different numbers. Like just because we did X amount percent this year, doesn't mean we have to do it. Like it might be lower next time based on if we get lower funding. So it kind of, we see what we're gonna get and then we base where can we go off of it. Does that make sense?
I'm just, yes, and I just think, in the realm of working with percentages, that. That's more risky, and why don't we work with dollars? Like, that's, like, why can't we say, like, we're gonna give. This is the cap per dollar raises that we're gonna give, why do we work with percentages? It just seems like there's a big gamut for over expenditure there in that. When you're talking about a variation of one employee getting a 53-cent raise, and another employee getting a $2 an hour raise, like when you take your percentages and you put them into dollars. The equity there amongst pay raises doesn't seem to be any continuity, plus the trajectory of that. Employees getting $2 an hour raises, how can we sustain that going forward when they get another 3% raise next year, et cetera? Like, it seems to be like that could be a mountain you might not be able to climb. So I just wanted to clarify and understand the process better, since I'm the one that kind of likes to follow the numbers and keep track of, our budgetary expenses.
So I would agree with you. You're right. The problem is the first thing you have to do on negotiations is really look at what area comparisons, comparative schools, and we pull in a lot of information, and we tend to throw out the St. Cloud, the Little Falls, the bigger
Well, we keep
districts.
little both sometimes. like,
Well, sometimes we
because
do, but I
get
mean,
cheaper.
you try to find it. I always like, my thing is who do we play football? Let's look at those schools, because them are usually about the same size schools, And if you're paying somebody that $2 below what the average is, I mean, number one, that's not right. Number two, you're not gonna have positions filled eventually. So there's been a lot of, the last two cycles, there's been some writing of that ship. But it's hard because everywhere else is writing that ship too, so it's a little tough. I agree with you, but it's something to watch. I agree with you.
I would say the hardest part is the groups that we negotiate with are asking for percentages, and when we talk about a dollar amount, they won't do it because it's not congruent for, like, if you've been here for 15 years, you get a little bit more of a raise because you make more and you've done that. So if you've only been here for a year and you get, let's say, a 25-cent raise versus a $2 raise for the lowest person that's been here for a year and one that's been here for 15 years, that doesn't make sense based on how much time they've had with the district experience and stuff like that. So what we've tried a couple different ways to do that, but it's always gone back to a percent is what the negotiating or bargaining unit has come back with. That as they approve it.
More for reasons of that's the way it's always been done, kind of.
I think so too.
Seems like it, you know, so that's. Yeah,
Any experiences you guys want to talk about with that?
I would just agree with what you just said.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Do you want to be on? video?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to be, yes, I understand better, yeah, and kind of, it's it kind of would be beneficial for the treasurer to.
Yeah,
those
for sure.
Committees.
Yep.
Which in hindsight, I'm now realizing, but yeah, I do plan to.
And for the most part, what we look at is like, just that, we have 4% and 2%, and we have to stay under that because that's all the money that we're getting. So those contracts have to come in as a conglomeration altogether through that.
Right, and my concern is short-sighting ourselves for long-term maintenance of the building, you know, like short-sighting our budget for the entire needs of all the students. Because we go away in salaries and benefits and raises and et cetera.
Well, and we haven't gone, that I know of at least, we haven't gone above what we've needed for payroll. Like that 4% and 2%, we've gone above for one group, but another group was a little bit lower that year because they were already making that much. So we haven't gone above that 4% and 2% as a whole, is my understanding anyway. So as long as we stay under that, we're still doing that work the right way. So we're not losing any money from any other source, but to pay for payroll is what I'm getting, I guess.
Right, I understand that, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, we have approval of FY 24 safe school revenue and balance cover eligible expenses.
This presentation is in regards to an already approved revised FY 24 budget. However, a reallocation in order of use of our resources in restricted fund balances that matches our board policy. This would be a recommendation and or a consideration to approve the current fund balance in our safe schools reserved fund to pay for eligible safe school expenditures that we currently have in fiscal year 24.
What percentage does that put our general fund at then?
If this were to be approved, the projected unassigned fund balance for fiscal year 24 would go from just under 16% up to 17%, which falls within the range of the board policy at 14 to 20.
You have the total dollars, the safe school fund, how much we're looking to spend. And what we're
Yeah,
spending.
let me just pull that up. Remember off the top of my head. So current safe schools restricted fund balance as projected or as finalized, I guess, in FY 23, it was just under $72,000. We are projected to receive just under $35,000 in revenue for fiscal year 24. The recommendation is to spend $95,000 on current eligible expenses for fiscal year 24, which would leave a remaining fund balance of just over $11,500 in safe schools. Which then results in an overall unassigned fund balance of 17%.
When does the funding come in?
So the funding is part of our levy, and so we receive levy funds in the fall and spring. of
Okay,
Each fiscal year.
Okay.
So depending on how the counties allocate those levy funds, we may get it all in the fall, we may get it, some in the fall, some in the spring. But because the board approves that levy in December of the subsequent year, we are guaranteed those funds in the next fiscal year. And then adjustments happen subsequent years, depending on enrollment and such.
So I'm interested in, what is the finance committee? I'm sure you guys have talked about it.
I think a big thing is to make sure the general fund is healthy. We want to make sure we're staying within what is 14 to 20%. If we don't do this, we'll still be within that, but then the following year, I believe it went down real close to that 14%. That would be my concern, is I don't want to really see that drop that much.
In agreement with you. It seems to me that's kind of what it's allocated for, is just to kind of use these funds. Weren't we having some concerns too, if we were audited, that they weren't maybe coded correctly too?
It's just out of compliance with the board policy, because board policy says you spend restricted funds first before you spend.
Right.
With board policy, so the auditor saw that, they might question, like, why are you doing this? What's your purpose in this? Sure. Not necessarily that it's a finding, but just what would your purpose be? You can't explain that you're not doing it, and they're probably gonna tell you you follow your policy.
We have a breakdown with the 95,000 will be spent on.
The majority of that would include the vape detectors, building security, and an allocation of our social work salary and benefits.
I think the security wasn't that like
The
71 or
largest amount,
72?
like $72,000.
Right? Does somebody want to make a motion for that?
I guess, one more thing. I would like to table it until we talk about the SRO stuff. That was the big thing with this money, with SRO. And then,
So let's get to discussion first. So we got a motion by Director Hackett. I will second for discussion. All right. But
yeah, so I would like to table it until after the SRO discussion, because that's what some of this money was, like, could be allocated for. Right, we talked about that. We had the SRO meeting, we talked about all that. I'd like to, I guess I think it should have been underneath the SRO. In my opinion. And the vaping, the building security, and the social worker, that can't get paid out of anything else but the general fund or this. Correct.
yeah, and so with that, like, either way we go on the SRO, we're either gonna spend the money out of the general fund or we're spending it out of this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we have the money now because we have to make this change before June 30th. So we have to do it at this meeting. So whether we do it at this meeting and we say we're gonna have an SRO, then we're gonna spend both those monies either way. So I don't know that it matters when we do that, I think it matters more so that we use it before the end of this fiscal year to make sure that we can do better with the budget before, at the end of FY '24 and going into '25. Because I think, either way, we're gonna spend the money, because we've already spent the money out of the general fund. So that money's already spent. If we can audit it back to this fund, that helps our general fund. And then if we do an SRO, then we can afford that out of the general fund the same way. So either way, both of those monies are getting spent. Whether we spend one with safe schools or,
Because they're still expenses.
Yep.
At the end of the day, they're still expenses.
It's just a coding thing.
Right.
yep,
And a change to your increase in expenses. Because adding an expenditure increases your already expenditures that we have resulting currently that are part of allowable uses of safe school money.
Were we already using safe school money to pay for partial social worker?
Yes.
That's been ongoing, right, since COVID? Right, that's where we
Actually, since I came,
Safe schools, that has been an allowable expense for as long as I know.
And I
that
don't
Safe
know
schools
how-
has been.
I don't know how long they've coded that there, because I think for a while, nothing was getting coded there before I got here. Oh, maintenance amendment, that's not what it's meant to do.
Correct.
So I'm not sure, but length of time, I don't know that.
So do we know what the money was spent on prior?
Like I said, for a while, it wasn't being spent. That's why.
Right, that's why we have a fund balance.
Right.
any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries 5-1. All right, going into approval of FY '25 budget.
Right, if you want to pull up not the narrative, just the budget. And I'll speak to, yep, I'll speak to the details of this presentation by way of the narrative that has been provided to the board. So this is the recommendation for fiscal year '25 original budget, required to be adopted and approved by the school board before June 30th, hence the presentation tonight. Go to the next slide. This is just a summary of the table of contents. We'll be looking at all funds under this FY '25 original budget recommendation. This screen provides a high-level summary of each of the funds: general fund, food service fund, community education fund, and debt service fund, and tallies total revenues of all funds and expenditures at the bottom. This again is just a high-level summary, and into the next slides, I will take a deeper dive into each of the funds. So starting with general fund, I can go to the next slide. No. General fund, yep, one more down, yep, page 2. So the general fund is our general fund, which consists of our general fund, Fund 1, Scholarship Fund 8, and Student Activities Fund 12, all under board control. Expenditures are detailed out based on the category of expense, and revenue is lumped into one sum. I start with revenue. Overall revenue is projected based on the state allotted 2% increase in the general education formula, taking into consideration the projected ADMs that we're building this budget off of, which is 910 adjusted daily membership, which doesn't necessarily equate to 910 students in seats in the district. Because it is based on an overall annual average daily membership. That's the number that we feel is the most appropriate to consider for this budget, which again results in 910 kindergarten through 12th grade students. In addition to this revenue, we also have, based on just recent legislation that was passed, additional literacy aid, one-time funding of 37,000. So that gives us just under 11.5 million in revenue. Expense is based on, stay there. Expense is based on the details of each of the different categories. Salaries and wages and benefits, again, are the highest percentage of our overall budget of just under $9 million. There, it's based on the exact detail of each employee in the district, the contracts that have been settled, and the placement of those employees on lanes, matrices, and or placement on their contracted salary schedule. In addition to salaries, there's other salaries that include substitutes that we pay, as well as any professional development salaries, stipends, activities, activity staff, etc. Fees for service, so purchase services includes our utilities, property insurance, and professional services. Those are expected to increase slightly, just over 1%. We continue to monitor our purchase services. A lot of these services we can choose to go out to bid if we want to, and that is something that we are going to look at closer in fiscal years 25. Specifically, our commercial property and liability insurance, we may have opportunities to find some savings there. The supply budget is based on the needs of each department, and this budget shows an overall decrease of about $150,000, just under $150,000, and this is mainly due to the reduction in non-instructional supplies. Technology expenses are included in the supply budget, but I like to call out that specifically. This supports the replacement of student devices and other instructional technology, which is also identified in our long-range facilities plan. And then capital is 500 capital expenditures code. We're seeing a slight increase there. This is based on, again, the long-term, long-range facilities plan that the district has worked hard to put together. And individual expenditures there is as noted in that financial plan. Overall, a deficit results in the fiscal year 25 budget of about $133,000. That will continue to be tracked and monitored in ways that we can perhaps look at cost reduction or revenue increase. This projection, if you want to go to the next slide.
So I have a question on that one.
Yep.
So what are we gonna do to cut $144,000 worth of supplies and materials? How do we do that? That's a lot.
$144,000 of non-instructional supplies, so that would equate to non-instructional supplies to support our buildings and grounds. We've had, based on previous years, a large budget for buildings and grounds, and there's areas in that area to save. Other areas would be our gas, fuel costs. We've been able to reduce there just based on the current cost of gas, of course, building in a small contingency there for any future increases. There's also in there, what else is in there that I'm thinking of non-instructional, some of the day-to-day operating costs, if you will, to notebooks for staff, to pens, to, there's the majority of that is our buildings and grounds facility supplies. As which will come in under this fiscal year as well, so. That's where I felt I based it on this current fiscal year versus the previous fiscal years, and we've come in under budget. Specifically in fiscal year 24, that supports the reasonableness of a decrease in that budget.
Great.
question. Thank you. So overall, just projecting a deficit of 133,000. As I had mentioned, we'll work on ways that we can continue to monitor the budget. Of course, this is a budget. It gives us a starting point for reasonableness, and then we always have the option again to consider revisions in subsequent months. Next slide is the same information, it just drills down the different funds. The top portion of this summary is all of the restricted fund balances from left to right, final year, fiscal year 23, what's projected in fiscal years 24, which then results in projected outcomes for fiscal year 25. Overall, we're expecting to end fiscal year 25 at just over 1.8 million, which based on this recommendation would end an unassigned fund balance of 15.8%, which falls within the range for policy. This also incorporates the use of assigned fund balance for the reading specialist, which was previously approved by the board. Next is the food service fund. This is Fund 2. We continue to work with the free meals subsidized by state and the federal reimbursement rates. For historical purposes and trend data, my recommendation is that we keep revenue the same, just over 750,000 for fiscal year 25, and that's based on the student participation in breakfast and lunch meals this fiscal year. As for expense, a deep dive again into salaries and benefits being the largest component of the budget in general, taking into consideration each of the employees in the food service program and their current contracts and where they are at as far as salary placement and benefits. Purchase services, repairs and maintenance are expected to decrease by about $1,000. This is mainly due to an increased repairs and maintenance in fiscal year 24, not expecting any of those higher costs in FY 25. The supplies budget is expected to increase just over 1%, mostly due to the cost of food and milk costs. Capital expense is about a budget of $5,000 to support unknown breakdowns of equipment, just to have that there as a placeholder in the event that we do have needs in that component. We don't expect any large capital purchases, just to have a placeholder for the smaller items that might need repaired throughout the fiscal year. And overall, the food service fund balance is consistent and stable at just under $225,000 projected for fiscal year 25. Community education is our Fund 4. Revenue is based on trend data and working in partnership with Amy in the community education program. Expecting a 3% projection increase overall in community ed. Expenses, again, similar to the other funds, working closely with staff coded under community education and what their roles are and their allocation of time and salary based on contracts and where they place on those contracts as salary and benefits. Fees for service, program instructors, professional services, fees that we pay to Mid-State specifically for early childhood family education is expected to increase slightly. And the supplies budget, again, based on the needs of those departments under community education and the projection of increased program participation is an increase in supplies as well. The FY 25 projected fund balance continues to remain stable, just under 270,000, which is a 46% fund balance. Again, a healthy fund balance there to support the community education programs. And finally is debt service. Debt service is Fund 7. This is strictly based on our levy and statute. Statute requires that we levy for 105% of our annual debt service payments. So the amount that we owe each fiscal year for the current bonds that we have. Both of those are set to be just, I can't read that far away. What is that? Just over $2 million, and our fund balance remains stable, again, based on statute. We can continue to maintain a fund balance there of just over 26% or just under 530,000.
So all of Fund 7 is just levy dollars that come in basically just to that account and then it just pays.
We
it out?
do have some equalization factors, meaning depending on our values of property within the district, we do receive some state aid to offset that in addition to the agricultural credits. But between levy and state aid, yes, that is based on statute and what we've approved in the levy.
What do we pay out of that fund in a year towards our debt?
That is all debt with the exception of that small bond, other category of just over $1,000. Those are fees associated with paying our principal and interest debt. So you can see there, it's broke out. Principal is 1 point. Make that bigger. Yeah, 1,335,000 is the principal we pay in a year towards our debt and 685,000 towards interest. And as the years go on, more goes to principal versus less to interest, unless we decide to bond for other reasons, not yet known.
So what should we have in there for a balance?
It's driven by statute, and so I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I can find out what that is, but the state actually looks at the fund balance and then determines what our revenue needs to be in order to meet our obligations, but I can find out what that answer is. I don't have that right now. But
I'm just wondering, like, we talk about what we want for a balance of our general fund as it is, and like, do we need more than 20% in that fund? You know, looking at, we're at 23% projected for the end of FY 24.
I don't think it ever goes down. Cause you're required to do 105%, right?
correct.
It's never went down since I've been on the board.
Well, and
I don't
that's
think it
what,
ever goes down.
can we pay any of that ahead of time? And that's what I'm wondering, like, what the percent is, because could we take 200,000 of that, put it towards principal extra this year and bring down that payment so we don't have to levy as much and do anything like that?
It's a really good question. I will find out the answer to.
Awesome. That'd be good to know. But it is probably like 20% that we have to have in there or something that we can't do much with. But
That's a good question.
yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully it is something we can do something with.
One that nobody has ever asked me in my 9 years as a business manager, so I'm looking forward to finding out what that
That'd be that,
answer is.
yes. Okay.
Anything else? I think I'm done up here, right? Oh, yeah, I'd asked, but I didn't hear anything.
All right. So we want to make a motion to approve the budget. Director Ryan,
Second.
second, Director Bowman. Discussion.
Well, The elephant in the room is that we're finding that going deficit spending for next year. With the knowing that we're probably being conservative with the ADMs. It's always been a problem for me since I've been on the school board is how conservative we are sometimes because I couldn't make it on a farm that way. But, you know, then you get, I understand why.
And it's just the beginning phase, so we'll look
Yeah,
at
I know.
expenses throughout the year and we'll make adjustments and all of that is. we move forward.
Personally, I'd rather see it.
As
be,
positions might, some people might leave and we may not replace those, you know, so those things happen.
Personally, I'd like to see it a bit more liberal and have us at the end reducing the income rather than starting out with the deficit, but I understand. it. So,
I don't think 910 students is a extremely conservative number. I think it's actually a realistic number. I don't think it's being conservative, quite honestly, just given the fluctuation of
you might be right.
enrollment here. And we've been looking at that history for how many times now, and I think that 910 is a good spot to sit and, in enrollment that you can count on. Because we flow underneath that and we have flex above that, but it's been an oddity, you know, in the numbers. When we go above it, we go way above it. So it's like no rhyme or reason.
Well, at least when we go below, we don't go way below, like you just said that, because yeah, we were at 942 and then on the Y and then, yeah, I don't.
So I don't think 910 is too conservative a number. I think it's pretty realistic. So I think the numbers that we're working with here are pretty realistic for what actual expenditures are gonna be in budgetary unless we have building and maintenance and
Flood or
Yeah.
fire or.
other
yeah.
unexpected things.
And we're not the only one, right? Talking with the other folks at Midstate, like everybody's having a board meeting just like this going, well, we're not making it ADM wise. Everybody's having that same issue. You know, and I think when I was doing the math, this weekend, like from our 910, it would take about 30 ADMs, like 30 more kids to come in for us to break even.
With expenses as are currently
Yep.
projected.
Right around that 30, like that's a lot of. That's a lot of recruiting. Do that.
I would say to your point, we're knock on wood, we're not having to like cut millions of dollars like some of the other districts in the area.
Yeah.
That's good.
So we're okay, but we can maintain where we're at, but I don't know where
We
we,
gotta make some business.
yeah. There's more we have to do besides just the budget here, so. Any other discussion? All right, I have a motion and a second, to approve the FY 25 budget. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, good conversation here. All right, school resource officer, for 25. So we put this on here, we've had our work sessions for it and, talked about it and whatnot, so. I wanted to bring it in to talk about, I think the first thing we need to do is say we're either. Going to do a resource officer in any capacity from 1% to 100%, or we're not. That's really what we need to figure out first before we, go on from there. So that's my thought about it anyway.
And I'll just make a clarifying comment from the presentation of the work session. The school district can't buy a police car or weapons. We can only pay for purchase services, which means the service time of an SRO in the building. So they do other things for the city. We can't pay for that, and we can't pay for a vehicle or weapons or uniforms. We just pay for the time. We just enter into the contract. This will clarify that.
I would agree with that. I don't know why you brought up buying a car and all that stuff. I mean,
So
that's,
it won't be 160.
yeah, so that's the city's responsibility, right? They own that car. We're not gonna fix the car when it breaks down, but we're not gonna insure the car, right? That's their car.
That would be an overuse of school district funds. We would.
I agree. I think we need a little bit more concrete number. So I think kind of deciding tonight whether it's yes or no is kind of tough because we don't have a number, so we can't say yes or no. You know what I mean? In my opinion, if that puts it off a little bit further, puts it off. It is what it is, you know, but I don't see how we can say yes or no with the numbers that we have right now, because I'd say the numbers we have right now are not even close, especially with what he was talking, you know.
The original number he gave me, when you take away those things, that
Right.
were really kind of strange to me, that went up to 160. The original number I got was more around 65.
Right.
Was what?
They were doing an estimate,
What did you say?
65,000.
Okay, that's what I.
They were doing a full-time SRO here at 65,000, and he was using a certain step, you know, they have steps and lanes like teachers have. it.
That's the cost to the district, and then
That was the original one I got.
they pay for,
Yeah, we don't pay for that.
no, I know, but wasn't at one point they they were talking about like splitting, or is that they're considering they pay for the other piece, the other stuff? so that's
65,000,
splitting?
what I understand, yes, 65,000, my understanding in that email would be the time they're here. For a full time.
That's the 75%
Right.
of the FT.
Okay,
that we're
that's
paying.
right, because that includes, benefits.
Yeah. And I apologize, I missed the work session. Is there a contract, like, are we, if we do it 1 year and then we don't like it, or we can't afford it, can we just stop it? Or are we like signed into a contract that?
You would have a contract, we can do an annual.
An
contract.
annual, okay.
I would not recommend doing, in my experience, we've never done like
I
3
would-
years,
like
we
a
always did them
multi,
every
yeah.
year, because we always. The cities, things changed, and they had different dollar amounts, and they gave you different officers, and.
Right.
That's my experience, and I've got it for 3 districts.
I think some of the numbers that were being shared were just an all-in expense, like, and, what I took away from the second meeting, was put your offer on the table, kind of. Like, here's the all-in, it's gonna, this whole role will be somewhere around $160,000 investment, and then you throw your offer on the table and see what the city would respond with. That's kind of how I took the information, as he was presenting it, and. So. If we can only afford 55,000, we offer that and see if they'll meet us where we're at. That's my thoughts. On, so the Safe Schools revenue will be about 34 to 37,000 next year. So you'd be using general fund dollars to offset the rest. Yeah, and I would think that we could do some, re-examining of other positions. If we're gonna bring a school resource officer in here, there might be some other positions that aren't quite as necessary anymore. Getting what the school resource officer can provide. Which I didn't know much about resource officer position until we had our very first work session. I had not been personally in a school district that had it when I was going through high school and et cetera, and, my children haven't attended this district where there had been one, so I had no personal experience, and, I thought it was quite enlightening, on all the positive and prevention that they bring into a student's educational experience.
What position would be that?
I don't think there would be a need for an assistant principal if we brought in a school resource officer. So I think that position could probably.
So what about the AD?
The AD would still be necessary, obviously.
You have a full-time AD? That doesn't suspend, because the school resource officer doesn't do discipline.
Right.
The assistant principal does discipline.
Yeah, we're also the smallest school to have.
I think
an
maybe
assistant
like,
principal, so I don't even know.
I don't know that I'd want, yeah, I don't know that I'd wanna do any immediate changes. Like, I think, to your point, maybe like after you've built it up for a while and you start to see the changes, in the students or in. And see where it's at that point.
So I kind of think we're going down a rabbit hole here, so, like I said, the first thing I'd like to figure out is, can we afford a school resource officer for next year? Like, do we want to put one on the table and do a vote for that? And then we can figure out, is that 10%? Is that $5,000, $10,000? Is it 50%? Is it $50,000? I think we can figure that out afterwards. Or we can table it until another time. Okay, can. But if we're gonna continue to talk about it, we should make a motion and get to discussion for it.
Motion to approve it.
Motion by Director Trout,
I'll second it.
second by Director Boyd. All right. Discussion.
I think it would be a positive change for this district, and I think that, we need to get off the hamster wheel we're on, and we need to just try something different, and the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. And with everything that a school resource officer brings to the table in positive change, I don't see why we wouldn't move heaven and earth to figure out how to make that program, test that program here and see what kind of fruit it brings. And I know that it's something that many community members won't want.
So this is approving, basically moving forward to essentially figure out how much we would like to spend on it.
Yeah, so this basically says, do we want to look at this for FY 25 or do we not? And then if it's yes, then we'll figure out after that what that looks like. Is that a 5% or 10%? What can we afford? That type of thing.
So as far as the school resource officer goes, all the research that I've done, talking with people, asking people, some people have no idea what it is, right? What's a school resource officer? Can you explain it to them? And then get information from people that have, you know, interacted with them or used them. I have yet to find any negatives at all on a resource officer. Nobody's come with me with any negatives. I don't know. All I've ever heard is positive about them. Interaction with the kids, the program that they can bring in, right? The relationship they have with the county and different resources they can have quicker access to there. I just don't see any negatives with it. I mean, it's definitely not gonna hurt a child, you know? I think the training they go through is very extensive. It's not bringing a patrol officer in the school. That's not what it is. So I guess if we can't find any negatives, why wouldn't we try and entertain it? Unless somebody has negatives, I don't know. I mean, nobody's brought any negatives to the table that I've heard. It's all been 100% positive. I guess that's kind
The
of where
one
I'm at.
thing that, through the whole thing the other night, the one thing that keeps ringing in my ears is when the superintendent, you know, she talked about how many officers they had, you know, in St. Cloud. And she brought up Clearview and said that, you know, there's no reason at all we'd have an officer there. And that one really stuck in my head because, so is their schools, I mean, is Royalton one that really needs it? I don't know. I've not,
The St. Cloud.
the St. Cloud superintendent.
Yeah.
I forgot her name, it was Lori, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, there we go. So, I know, I just wonder if this year or if it's something in the future, I agree with you. I just don't know if it's necessarily needed in Royalton right now. Maybe it is. I've not heard from administration that they think it is, and that makes me wonder if it is. So that's my only negative I have about this. I don't know what. We had two crimes committed in the school in the entirety of the last year. And that's, we're gonna bring a full-time person in for that and I mean. And I'm not trying to take any thunder from anything or anything else, but their job as being a Royalton police officer is the town of Royalton, and that includes the school district. So if we call them, they need to come. I don't know, that's the way I see it, that's all I got.
So I think you might be missing the point a little bit on it, because their job isn't to come in here and enforce the law. Their job is to come here almost as another teacher, right? To have programs to teach either DARE, to help out with the driver's ed stuff, to do cybersecurity training, with the kids, to let, you know, kind of take that side of things. It's not, when there is something that they need to deal with, they will. And I know you said Putnam said, well, you know, maybe Clearview or Discovery or something like that didn't need it. That's funny because it contradicts what she told me when I originally talked to her on the phone. She told me they were trying to get one for Discovery, and she actually told me the first meeting she was gonna come out here and explain why Discovery would be a good place for an SRO. I said, that'd be great. She goes, yeah, because it's actually kind of aligned with your community. She told me that on the phone. I said, that's great, right? And then things may have changed between then and now. That's what she told me on the phone personally to me. So I was a little shocked by that when she brought that up.
Well, I know, because
But then
it
Sergeant
seemed like it was
Kleinfeld-
out of place, didn't it? I mean,
It did.
and that's why it stuck in my head, because it seemed like it was out of
Yep.
place, so.
And then Sergeant Kleinfelder, after she said that, he goes, this would be a great area to be a school resource officer, because you can do that stuff. You can interact with all the students, not just with 10 of the students, that, you know, like in St. Cloud at Tech High School or at South Junior High. That resource officer is almost interacting with just maybe 10 or 15 students most of the time, because those are the troublemakers, right? That are breaking the law big time. Here, he said you can interact with all the students and make a bigger impact on all the students, because you can kind of run those programs more than spend so much time with the troubled kids. So I would say Kleinfelder as a, you know, SRO or in charge of SRO program, so that would be a great community to be a SRO in. I don't know, he's the guy with all the training, he's the guy that runs all that stuff and sees it on a day-to-day. And then what she said here, sitting at the table, totally contradicted what she told me on the phone. So, like, a complete 180, to be 100% honest with everybody in this room. So,
Did they happen to say how they incorporate those programs? Cause they can't, I mean, they can't teach, they're not a licensed teacher, so they can't be alone. Like, they can't run a class.
now they do though,
If we invited them into.
The
Is it like
teachers
during
present.
a class?
Yeah,
teacher would
so a
be present
teacher would
for that
invite
session.
them.
Oh, yeah, they can't be, they're not a licensed teacher,
Sure.
100% sure, they're not a licensed teacher. So they can't run an actual class, but that would be no different than us calling the chief and saying, can you come in, like he's doing now, he's currently coming in and giving presentations. It'd be
Right.
that same, I was just curious if it was like, did they do it like before school, after, did they say anything?
It was
About
teachers
that?
like calling.
Like they would come in
Can
and
you come
instead
in
of
and
teaching
talk
for
to
the
my
class
kids?
period, they're doing a certain program, okay. I didn't know if they were running like after school things or something.
Not as a presentation. I'm kind of with Randy. I'm on mixed feelings on this one. It does sound like valuable program. I question how much need we have, also considering the deficit spending we're currently in. I don't know, when we're already trying to trim expenses, if now is the time to be adding positions without clear direction of where else we're gonna cut. I don't like adding more debt to our budget, honestly. I'd like, I guess, more information on how to bring those numbers back in alignment before I'd want to be adding another new position. It's kind of my take on it right now.
Well, and that's the hard part about that, like that, as a board, that's what we have to do, right? We say, hey, this is an asset that we want to do, and we need to stay within budget. So then it goes back to the administration to say, okay, well, that means this is what our cuts are gonna be based on adding this, and we're gonna cut this stuff. Cause that's how we're gonna balance the budget, and that's for them to decide, that's, you know, not for us to work down that hole.
And we get another infusion of Safe in Schools money this fall,
Every year.
every year, in the fall or spring, sometimes all of it.
At some point.
Do we have other tasks that we do yearly that we kind of budget for that? Or the safe schools, I mean,
We
like
would
you
not.
said, the
We
social
would,
worker
right, we
or,
would take a current expense and put it there. That's a allowable expense. It has to be allowable, not everything can just.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I'm of that same thing, when we're looking at, 133,000. Right now, as a deficit for the end of FY 25, and that's if everything, you know, like I was asking about the. What was it, the 144,000 that we're. Trying to cut from supplies, like. We may not get to that. We may have supplies that we have to buy or whatever, like that, I don't know. I don't know much about that, so I don't know that that already means we have 300 filters on the shelf, so we don't need to buy filters, and that's that expense, because I know that happens too, but you know, and from where we're at, like I said, it's about 30 ADMs to get even, and then we'd add more that would be needed unless we cut some other things to do that for that. That's the hardest part for me to.
So how much would it affect the budget? If, let's just throw $50,000 out there. But I look at the salaries and wages, so that's where it would have to come from, correct?
You use 34 to 37 of your safe schools money, and the rest will come out of your general fund, period.
Which would be salaries and wages, right?
didn't you say we had the social work already there, so that person?
Well, we would put them back into the.
They'd be
general fund.
moved out, but I mean, it'd still be the 50,000 or.
It's $50,000,
Right.
it's added expenses.
wherever we-
It's 50, yeah, you have to think about,
Whatever
the
it is.
expense goes up 50,000, it's just where you code it
Sure.
is the only factor.
So I look at salaries and wages in the general fund, and it says that the percent of change is 5%.
That includes substitutes and everything.
Right, so why are we thinking it's gonna go up 5%? If increase in salaries, it's like when we negotiated was 2%, where we getting an extra 3% on the whole salary would. It's a huge chunk, right? So we're at $7 million about. Why do we think it's 5%? How do we get that? Yeah, how do we get that?
So under salaries, it includes all of our staff based on their placement on their matrices within their respective contracts. Some staff have moved up in steps and or lanes, so that's an increase. Our substitute costs are in there, and so that's a variable cost, but that has exponentially increased year over year. In addition to any salaries for coaches, advisors, professional development stipends for contractual obligations depending on the contracts, includes
Comp time.
overtime.
Teachers get comp time if they're filling in because we can't find a substitute.
Leave payout.
Leave
Right, but we
payout.
think that's gonna go up 5%, like we pay all that stuff this year already, right?
No, it's with the increases, that's the estimate of the budget at the end.
Right.
She's gone through it, where everyone's hit on their lane and their steps, et cetera. And it could even go up even more if they get more education and qualify for a lane change at the end of the year. Happens all the time.
Depends on too, if we have any staff that we're replacing where they come in on their
Yeah.
salary.
So if a teacher leaves and we replace that second grade teacher, and they end up being higher on that salary schedule, that costs you more. However, if they come in lower, you save. That's where all those variables.
I literally just asked this question 30 minutes ago when we were approving 7 contracts. Did I not just say, are we able to sustain this trajectory? And everybody said yes, easily. And now we're in a deficit. After we talk about the budget, and now we want to discuss an addition that would benefit students. We were gonna do some child first budgeting around here, where we put child's needs met first. On the trajectory scale. An SRO would be, a huge asset to the children directly. And now we're vetoing it because we're in deficit spending. Even though 30 minutes ago,
So
Everything was
that's two
doing
different
fine.
things though.
no, not really, it all was on the money.
It is, but it's two different monies that, at least that I'm seeing that you're talking about, because you're talking about salaries specifically, and the deficit
giving
is,
all the money away in the raises and bonuses.
right, but we're still under where we are in the 4%, 2% there. It's also all of the other stuff that we're in the deficit, so it's not like we're in the deficit because of salaries, it's all the other stuff as well.
The salaries is the largest one by far.
Giving those
No,
extensive of
I
raises.
understand.
I mean, the raises are almost double what the standard average cost of living raise is for general public working for businesses.
No, the raises here are way less than what you make in the private sector.
Our salaries are in line with our neighboring districts.
I like the programs. I think there's huge value. Have we talked with, is there a way to get those implemented without the need for like an SRO in the building? Like the DARE or the other, like you were talking about, like the cybersecurity, like are there ways they would come in? I mean, I know they come in and do some of that stuff now, I believe. Like, I
But
don't
a
know if
huge
that's
portion of it
an
is the
option.
relationship building they do with the students as well. You know, and just how that improves your community as a whole. You know, there's quite a huge transition from the elementary school to the middle school, and it reflects behaviorally extensively in this district. So that's an elephant in the room that nobody ever wants to discuss, but there is huge issue there. So we were equipping children ever since they were in the elementary school. I wonder how successful they would be 5 years from now, when they make that transition to middle school. They were able to better manage themselves if they had some of these prevention, some of these citizenship, and just personal development as a child that these programs would bring in, and the relationships they build. You know, when they gave testimony about how they could head off the pass for some of these kids and give heads up and say, hey, you know what, we were just involved in an incident with these families last night. This kid's coming in on their, you know, they're fried and they've had some hardship, and you're gonna need to extend grace, and we're gonna need to give them what, you know, a safety net here today. That would head off a lot of behavioral things, because children mostly speak through behaviors when they're not getting needs met. And so just another asset to be able to identify what these kids are actually needing, being plugged into those resources, in ways that we don't currently access. It's just gonna provide for a much more well-rounded family dynamic and a healthier community as well. So I just see it as multifaceted, not just a good DARE program type of thing. I see it much deeper than that, into making Burlington just an even better community, better kids all the way around, stronger families, all of it. So that's what I see from the entire A to Z in implementing this whole program with an SRO. So I see lots of benefits.
Like I said, there's been no negatives with the program that I've heard from any district or anybody that's been involved with one. And when you can share the cost of bringing something in that good for the community with the city, and the city is on board with it, why wouldn't you want to share the cost of it? I just don't understand that. We have no problem finding money for other positions. I mean, we do it all the time. Nothing against community ed. I know you're a community ed person, but we're gonna get a community ed director because it's gonna be great. That fund is now in deficit spending because of it. It was not gonna be, it was gonna make its own money, and it hasn't done that. But that's okay, because. I don't know, it is, I guess,
Has there been a year that it hasn't been a deficit spending
Yeah, before we had,
before we put the director
you
in?
look at the,
but now we've got preschools, know much better with oversight. It takes time to build that.
Fund 4 can't pay for a school resource officer, so the position in Fund 4 doesn't impact. It
No, I-
actually helps the general fund
Yeah,
because
'cause we took
50%
50%
of
out of
that
that.
salaries.
I understand that, I was just saying we can find money for other positions that we want. Pretty easily, right? Any other position that we wanted to come into the school, it's always been unanimous, yes, let's bring them in.
I think you're probably right there. That's, you know, that's really what we're down to is the question, and I think that's what Ryan's saying is, do we want a school resource officer? I think it's down to if we want one or not. I think you're totally right on that.
Right. And with the impact that it has on children, that's what we're here for the children. And it's only been positive. We've been talking about it now, we've talked about it, this is our third time, fourth time talking about it. Not one person has run a negative thing up to me other than money. And I'm not gonna let money get in the way of my kids. If it's gonna improve their life, if it's gonna improve one kid's life, why wouldn't you do it? It's only been positives, nobody's brought any negatives at all. None, not one. So until we can bring a negative, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. We find money for everything else. Everything. Name one position that we had to come in here that we said we didn't want to come in. Can somebody name a position that we turned down? I've been on a year and a half, every position that we want to add, we added unanimously. Because it improves for the children, right? That's what we want.
We didn't approve the dean of students about 10 years ago. There's been a few. The big difference between this and all the other positions is administration has never asked for this. This has been something that's come from. Yep.
Who do we work for?
I have one other, who like would dictate, like, let's say we get one and we see. We are needed way more in the elementary, or, okay, now something's happening in the middle school, like. Who tells them like, hey, focus your time here, or do they just determine that? Does anybody know?
They work with the principals.
Oh, okay.
From my perspective, I agree. It sounds like an amazing program. I have not heard the need personally brought to me. I don't know the volume of the ask, I guess. So I don't know how many parents are out there saying, we need this in our district. Is this a large number of our community that says, yep, you know, is this something we really need to actively do? Or is this a kind of a small subset of our patients, our students that would, I don't know, I don't know the need.
Yeah, I've seen a lot as well, and I've had a lot of conversations with folks that. Don't know. That. If an SRO would be useful. Like we talked about, like. Are we trying to solve a problem? Because what. And, like I understand what you're talking about a little bit with, we can build community relations and different things like that, but. I haven't seen like a problem come up that says, hey, let's take a look at how we can solve this problem. And that an SRO is the thing to do that. It's been brought up that, hey, we need an SRO, and here's all the things that the SRO can do, but not that. Here's the problem set that we have, and here's a way to solve it, or another way to solve it.
problems I'm not aware of. And I'm not in the building every day. Is there a need that administration or principals would feel this could solve?
Do we glean the community then on the survey? I mean, no, this is, I'll ask them to make their decision, but I mean, that's a route. If everyone's unsure and everyone's getting different responses from the people that they interact with, then do we do something collectively to get as much of the collective voice heard in the same format? I don't.
So I would say if we approve a school resource officer, we absolutely should, and then we can figure out how much that is, right? Is that a 50%? Is that a 10%? Is that a $10,000 to come in and do these 3 programs? You know, or is it 100% and we need it 60% in the middle school, 40% in the elementary school, something like that? To see what that is. But I think if this is approved, I think we'd have to look at a lot of education and a lot of having some, you know, parent input, administration input, and having like, hey, here's what a school resource officer does, you know. For our work sessions, there was 4 members from the community here to learn actually about what it is, because, you know, like when you were just talking about, hey, we, an assistant principal, right? Well, SRO can't replace what an assistant principal does, you know, so those are 2 really separate things that they don't go together, right? An SRO can't do discipline, this person does discipline and stuff like that.
That's rules handle discipline. When it calls for it. They don't need out discipline. The principals they can't discipline kids. And also assistant principals do teacher evaluations as well. So it's not just discipline, it's teacher evaluations, it's all of that. They don't discipline kids. We assign the discipline. If they're gonna get suspended, we suspend them, the school suspend them. If you have a crime on your campus, you have 2 parallel investigations. You have the police that do their investigation and you have the principals that do theirs. And they meet out their discipline, and if they bring charges, the county attorney decides to bring charges, but they're parallel.
That the officer Kleinfelder said that a lot of times he just lets it go to the school because their punitive damages or whatever you wanna call it, their discipline is harsher than what he can get through that. So I don't know. There's a few things that really run out. I mean, I could tell he was disgusted with the system.
Right. You know, and like, so for instance, vaping is a problem. Our county attorney won't charge for that, right? So whether we have a principal, assistant principal finding that out and doing some discipline for that, or they do that and then they turn it over to the SRO to actually charge or do something with, that doesn't get us anything from that.
Well, my final thought is what we have now isn't working. The community members are asking for some change of some sort. This is the most positive route I've seen for change. In the realm of influencing student behavior, disciplinary track. And bringing something positive into the play here. So that's my final thought on it.
Yeah, can you elaborate on what's not working? Like, what are you hearing is
This discipline is just,
not going well?
there's inconsistency. There's failure to have solid relationship or effective communication with administration. There's frustrated parents whose kids have been failed fallen through a gap. So therefore they don't turn in any of the harassment and bullying and things that are happening to them. The kids are afraid, they don't tell, they just take it. We don't have any really solid procedures. It's seems to be case by case, student by student. There's no, this kid can get away with this kid cannot. People want to see some consistency and some standards followed. If we had to bring in an SRO, that we would have to develop all of this stuff, that everybody would be on, they would all be on the same page. Maybe we would catch some of these deficits that we currently have here when it comes to these types of things. I know a lot of parents are concerned for their kids' safety. They brought that to me, because they brought it to me because they want to know how to homeschool, because they're afraid for their kids' safety and they want to pull them. So there's a valid concern. It's coming to me through a sidewinded path because they think I can teach them about what it takes to homeschool, since I do that. And so it needs to be addressed. I mean, there's just what we're currently doing. Our current normal isn't successful.
So I think that's probably the problem that we need to talk about. But I would say 90% of that an SRO couldn't do anything with.
But teaching kids from the age of kindergarten how to be friends instead of bullies and how to get your needs met and all those programs that they do. What if these kids didn't have these behavior issues by the time they got to place A, B, C, and D, because they had this mentorship or this program really positively affected them, or an SRO happened to be around in the building when they were having family tragedies and it changed the trajectory for that child, you know, et cetera, et cetera. This is the most positive outlet that I can see bringing positive change to our current issues.
So I don't disagree with that, but that's one way to solve that problem. And we haven't looked at any other ways to solve the problem, because there are many other ways to solve those problems. That's what I'd like to look at. If that's what we think our actual problem is, that's something that we need to address, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we need an SRO to address it.
That's one of the problems.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's a big one, but that's one of the problems. I can just get personal on this in a secondary problem. My children have all been introduced to technology forced by the school's hand, long before I wanted it in my parenting plan. And all of my children have been taken advantage of on the internet. So all of my kids have been forced to have iPads and tablets and all of these things when they got to school, long before I would allow it in my own parenting process. And then they were not equipped to be digital citizens. And they all have been taken advantage of because of it. So if the school is going to introduce technology to children and say, this is part of your learning plan, then they also should then carry the responsibility of digital citizenship and teaching kids how to be safe. And the SROs bring that program to the table, which has not been a priority for school districts to teach children that. So there's a secondary problem that's dramatically affected my own family with 3 of my 4 kids. So I don't think it's an isolated incident for a child of mine.
No, I don't think so either.
So there's a secondary issue that also in one fell swoop with an SRO could be addressed. Kids could be being taught so much more about internet dangers and how to be responsible on the internet, instead of just being thrown an iPad in their face because they hit the kindergarten front door.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
It absolutely is.
There's no way to gauge it unless you do it, right? We're all like, well, we don't know what would bring Royalton. Well, you'll never know. So if that's what we want to base our decision on, not knowing if we need it, then you're never gonna have it. Because you'll never know what it's gonna do unless you have that program. That's all there is to it. How are you ever gonna know what it's gonna do in Royalton? Unless you do it. And if you don't do it, then we're just gonna stand on that mountain every time and say, well, we don't know if we need it in Royalton. You're right, because we haven't had it. And how do you gauge it unless you have it, right? Because some say you might need it in this community. The guy that's in charge of the SRO program in St. Cloud says he would love to be an SRO in this community. We've got the police chief that is 100% on board with it, that wants to have an SRO. We've got a police officer in town, Ray, that was an SRO, that has no problem training somebody to be an SRO. He doesn't want to do it, but he would have no problem training somebody, right? He did that for a while, decided he wanted to go back out on the streets again. Some cops want to be cops on the streets, some cops like SRO work, right? He's trained in it, he knows what he's doing, right? So we already have part of that set up in Royalton. And if we just keep standing on something going, well, we don't know if we need it. You're right, we don't know if we need it, right? But the only way to know if it works or not is to try it. And if we're backed by the city that's willing to cover some of these costs, right? I said at the beginning, if the city stands out there and says we have to pay for half the car, we have to pay for half this, half of that, it's not gonna work, right? We can't do that. But if the city is willing to pay 25% of the salary, because they're not gonna be here the full time, right? I don't see how you pass that up. It's all good. I get it. We don't know what it's gonna do in Royalton. You're right, we don't. We have a 1-year contract and it's a disaster. And we tell the city, hey, we're not gonna renew that 1-year contract because it didn't work. You guys didn't do what you said you could do. So we're not gonna do it. I think we spend a lot of money on other things that we just keep spending money on. Keep doing it, let's try it, let's keep spending money on it. Do they all work? I mean, do we go down the line and test every single thing to make sure it works before we renew this teacher's contract the next year? Do we do that with everything? We don't. Right, but I think we're willing to do that with SRO. We're willing to say, yeah, we'll give it a year. Right? I don't know why that would hurt so much. I mean, I guess I just don't understand. Like I said, there's been no negatives. You're right, we don't know what it will do in Royalton. How do you know? There's only one way to find out. Otherwise, it's a dead subject. If you're not willing to try it, it's gonna be the same thing every time. We don't know. We don't know. You're right, we don't know. All right. Anybody else? All right, well, we have a motion and a second. So let's do a roll call vote.
Director Trout?
Yeah.
Director Bauman?
Aye.
Director Boyd?
Aye.
Director Roy? Nay. Director Hackett?
Nay.
Director Hofstad?
No. So 3-3, so the motion does not carry. All right. Application of educational benefits and board presentation.
So this is just an update. Last year, we attempted a pilot to see if we could, by waiving voluntary check fee, if we could get more people to sign, to fill out the free reduced lunch form. And it, can you get to the current one? It didn't yield us the current, that's the. So I want to give you an update on what it yielded us and then, going forward. So the next slide, please. So basically, we had total applications, paper and online. We had 81 and then it jumped to 229. Again, then we waived the voluntary fee form. Total counts and free reduced did not go up much at all, 15. And that percent then stays pretty much this standard. Next slide.
I have a question about that slide. There's not a threshold, like 30% is the threshold for something, is it?
Like 30% of our students.
Yeah, but there's not like a
Yeah, no,
threshold number, okay,
no, no. And then,
because, I mean, it's 3%.
yeah, the next slide. So we waived 572 fees for $14,000. We collected 4,600 versus 17,000 from prior year. Going. So based on that data, we don't feel it necessary to continue. It didn't yield us any additional data or forms like we were hoping. One thing that has changed now as compared to before, is there's direct certification. So schools get notified now because of all the other different programs that families could be on. They then alert us and tell us they qualify. The family doesn't have to actually tell us. We still try to get those forms, however, because the federal hasn't changed. So for title services and such, we'll still try to get all those forms filled out so that we have it for record for the title, but. So I just wanted to bring this as an update that we would likely just continue going back to how we've done it before. It really worked for us.
All right. Minnesota State High School League Resolution membership.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp Herman, Keelan French Activities Director. This is for our annual resolution to be part of the Minnesota State High School League. There's a brief video that the league puts out for every year.
Hi, I'm Eric Martin, Executive Director here at the Minnesota State High School League, and thank you so much for taking time to watch this video. The Minnesota State High School League is a dynamic partnership of more than 600 schools, reaching all communities and corners of the state. Our mission is to provide educational opportunities in fine arts and athletics for all students. The 2023-24 school year was a great one for the league. As we look ahead to the upcoming school year, there are some exciting things that we are working on. You may not realize the league is operating as a 10th through 12th grade organization, but now the league is considering bringing all 9th grade participants and contests under the governance of the league. That would make us a 9th through 12th grade organization. This would allow all 9th grade participants valuable insurance coverage in the event of injury or a concussion. Welcoming 9th graders in this way would be a monumental change and one that is overwhelmingly supported by our member schools. A change like this will require action from member schools. So look for more information coming from the league in the beginning of the 24-25 school year. To be fully engaged members of the league, our schools are required to commit to following all league rules. These rules have been collectively established and are critical to ensuring safe experiences, equitable opportunities, and fair play for our participants. That's why we continue to expand our efforts to share and inform all schools about the requirements and expectations so everyone can do their part. As educational models continue to change, we're seeing a number of newer schools, primarily online schools, in which our Minnesota students are now enrolling. This sometimes raises questions about students who are taking courses in more than one school. In response, we're re-examining our current practices related to participation and eligibility, and we're considering ways to most effectively provide opportunities for students to participate. We're pleased to report the league continues in a strong financial position. Thanks to strong tournament attendance, supportive and collaborative partners and sponsors, wise investments, and fiscal responsibility. As a result, it's very likely that this coming year's membership fees, after credits, will be the lowest in nearly 30 years. As always, our top priority remains the same: to promote and support safe, respectful, and inclusive environments for participation and competition. We want all of our high schools to provide activities and events that focus on educating our students and are free from discrimination, harassment, and marginalization. Together, we make a difference was designed to amplify the voices and advance the vision of our students to ensure respectful and safe schools and environments.
It's important to feel safe because within that, you're able to perform the way you want to, and you're able to give the results you want to. In my personal opinion, when I'm not comfortable, I'm not giving all I can.
It takes a team of dedicated adults like you to provide the kind of programming our students deserve. That's why the league and its schools are focused on recruiting, retaining, and supporting our coaches, officials, and administrators.
As an education-based activities director, there's nobody more important than the coach or advisor for our students, whether it's in the fine arts or athletics, because we know that each child is one caring adult away from changing their path of their life.
If you look at or listen to any successful person talk about how they got there, they never did it alone. There's always a mentor. And so we need those types of leaders in our schools today to help our young people understand what it means to be a strong, supportive person within the community.
Sometimes the most enduring lessons our students learn happen through activities beyond the classroom. So it's our goal to focus on enhancing the education of students through a broad range of opportunities that extend the traditional curriculum.
When alumni come and talk to me, the one thing I always hear is, they remember those big moments, but they also remember what led up to them. Everything that they've done to prepare and how those coaches and those experiences have helped prepare them.
At the Minnesota State High School League, it's about more than membership. It's about partnership. We have seen that when our member schools commit to common principles and expectations, we all experience the benefits. The benefits that come from a shared responsibility to provide safe, respectful, and inclusive activities for all of our students.
To do our best for student athletes and participants, we need to be good partners to one another and collaborate with other schools and the Minnesota State High School League. Every single one of us has an important role to play in making sure that our students have the very best opportunities and experiences when they are participating in activities.
Nothing is more important than the well-being of our students, and participation in activities is a great way to enhance our students' overall health, both physically and mentally.
I think it's really, really important that every high school student finds something to be involved in. Finding some way to get involved in your school and in your community is so important. It not only positively benefits your mental health, but helps you improve as a person, helps you grow, helps you make connections with other people.
These activities have helped shape who I am because it makes me understand the importance of being in something, and it has helped you for the future because these activities help you gain skills such as time management and communication. Giving students these valuable opportunities is the mission of the Minnesota State High School League. And looking around the state this year, we've seen high participation numbers, packed venues, and enthusiastic support from school communities. And together, we have a bright future ahead. On behalf of the Minnesota State High School League, I thank everyone in all of our member schools for your continued active support. Because it's about more than membership, it's about partnership.
All right, so we want to move the approval of the Minnesota State High School League resolution for membership. Director Bowman,
A second.
second, Director Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of donations by resolution. All right. I will introduce these and move for their adoption. Cyber grants on behalf of Charities Aid Foundation of America has generously donated $100 to support one or more of our programs. Jason and Tammy Leibel have generously donated $124.55 to a family in need for food service. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Mrs. Weir a grant awarded in the amount of $1,500 to support the care closet. The Bolus Firemen's Relief Association has generously donated $2,500 to the Royalton Royals Robotics to be used for registration, supplies, tournament fees, and or travel expenses. And Langola Township has generously donated $2,500 to the Royalton Community Education to help meet the costs with running their program. So therefore be it resolved by the Royalton School Board to gratefully accept these gifts. Motion for adoption of this resolution was seconded by member Bowman, thank you. And upon a roll call vote taken, the following voted.
Director Trout.
Aye.
Director Bauman.
Aye.
Director Boyd.
Aye.
Director Roaring, same. Director Hackett.
Aye.
Director Hofstad.
Aye. All right, thank you. Policy reading, so. We haven't put any new first policy readings, there's plenty in this second policy readings that we're gonna do. So we're waiting right now, 704 is the inventory of fixed assets, we're trying to figure out what that looks like. If that's stuff over $5,000 or if that's every chair, table.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all good.
Awesome. Okay, Perfect. So that one we held as a second one, and then the use of district facilities and equipment, that one's gonna take us a few months to do, and it's a lot. A lot of pages and a lot of how do we wanna do this and how should we do this and who falls into what categories and different things, so. Amy gets the fun job of working that, which will be great once we get it done, and then we'll change it again afterwards. So the second readings, second and final readings, I went through as we started. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve those? Director Crowe,
I'll second it.
second by Director Hackett. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And one third policy reading, I talked about as well, we were waiting on this one to get 807, and now that 807's in the process there, we can move this for approval, so can I get a motion to approve 407?
So moved.
By Director Hackett,
Second.
second by Director Bauman. Any discussion on that one? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, an upcoming meeting schedule. So June 24th is the strategic planning committee meeting. Where is that being held?
Yep, in the cafeteria, 6 o'clock, we'll be rolling out the communications plan.
All right, and then are you gonna be there, Director Roaring? And Director Trout?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then there was a request made to move our 2 Wednesday meetings to Tuesday, the 25th. Same times, noon
Yeah.
and 1.
That works for everyone.
Okay,
Works for me.
good. Director Trout?
I do that.
Okay. We will change those then to noon finance on June 25th. And 1 PM policy meeting on June 25th. And then our next regular meeting is July 8th. To do that.
Is everybody gonna, like, will we have enough? Nobody's on vacation, like, we don't have multiple people on vacation. It's just kind of by the phone. I just wanted to make sure. I'll be around.
We don't do much. I will tell you, it's a very, very light agenda. We're paying the bills.
I just wanted to make sure in advance that we had enough people that knew they would be here.
Yeah.
I will be here.
Yep.
Okay,
I'll be here. No, that's a good point though.
That's great.
Yep. All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Okay, ask a question before we adjourn. In regards to the concerns with the bullying, cybersecurity issues, can we talk about this more down the road? About those particular problems, either administration presenting something or in a work session or something? I don't want those concerns just dropped just because we kind of stopped the SRO for today. Those are new concerns I haven't heard, so I'd like to dive deeper into that to see what is going on.
Yeah, so I have that as a note too, like, that was all, to me, that was all great discussion, like that great board discussion about how we do that, and going forward, we'll figure out a way to make a plan to figure out, look at the problem and see what are symptoms versus what are actually the problems. See if we can dive into that, and that's more, I suppose, principal's jobs than anybody else, but we definitely need to look at that. So I appreciate you talking about all that, for sure. Because there's definitely things out there to do that. So yes, we'll make a plan.
That'd be great. Thank
Yep.
you.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion by Director Bowman.
Okay.
Second by Director Roaring. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We are in adjournment at 8:19.